Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another episode of Dark Powerrr. We're going to start right away with this week's episode of AEW Dark. It has 4 matches: Jimmy Havoc versus Marco Stunt of Jurassic Express, Strong Hearts versus Dark Order, Joey Janela versus Kip Sabian, and Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall versus Peter Avalon tagging again with Shawn Spears. So they start off with the Jimmy Havoc and Marco Stunt match, and it kind of follows a bit of a formula of what happens when Marco Stunt's involved in a match. It's a small guy versus, generally speaking, a larger guy. I don't think there's really an opportunity for them yet to get somebody smaller than Marco Stunt. Maybe if they got Swoggle, but who knows. Anyway, it follows that kind of general storyline of Marco Stunt trying to use his speed and his size advantage, and yes, I did say advantage, to try to beat his opponents. Marco has a size advantage in the sense that he is harder to grab. There's less of him, yes, but because of that, when he moves, he's able to move and he moves faster. It's more difficult to grab him than it would be for another larger competitor. And that kind of happens here. Jimmy Havoc's having a bit of a tough time in the beginning of the match trying to keep up with Marco. Marco's moving really, really fast and trying to just hit from different places all at once. But eventually, Jimmy Havoc is able to catch up with Marco Stunt and put him away. However, during this match, what is kind of interesting is they have Luther and Mel come out. They tease some kind of confrontation between the two, but nothing comes out of it. It's not even really that much of a distraction during the match, so you kind of wonder why they even did it. And I know they're trying to set something up between Jimmy Havoc and Luther, whether it's going to be a rivalry, whether it's going to be the two of them working together. I'm not entirely sure, but I think maybe it's leaning more towards a sense of rivalry. But either way, it'd be nice to kind of have something to know about that, right? Like which it's going to be. Maybe that'll come next week, maybe like in the weeks after. Maybe they're deciding to leave some of that for what they will build coming out of Revolution. Because remember, this is the last episode of Dark before Revolution, and we'll see where the company stands after Revolution. After this Saturday, it's going to be a whole new landscape. We don't know who's going to be our tag champion, our women's champion, our world champion. So we'll see. But for right now, we know that there's something going on between Luther and Jimmy Havoc. So next, we have a match between Strong Hearts and the Dark Order. This is really a good match. I liked it. They had a lot of the physicality that you expect from the Strong Hearts, and the Dark Order really is dominating how they need to. We have a situation where they're building this off of what has happened in the Battle Royale from the week prior. They had a tease of kind of the Dark Order really getting in on this recruiting thing. We know there's something going on with this Exalted One. Is it Lance Archer? Is it Matt Hardy? Is it somebody we don't even know? Well, that remains to be seen. But we know that the Dark Order is moving further along when it comes to recruiting people. They're definitely doing going back and forth with SCU and Chris Daniels, but they also gave a mask. Evil Uno also gave a mask to Shima. So what's happening there? We're not entirely sure. But because of what happened in that Battle Royale, we have this match. And in this match, Dark Order does pick up the win after a really quick match for a tag match. I think it was about 8 minutes long, but it really did set the pace very well. And both teams came out looking strong in it, despite Strong Hearts taking the loss. And I will say that, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I was saying I was really hoping to see Strong Hearts more and more on Dark or Dynamite in the upcoming weeks and months. And it's really nice to see them having a return match on Dark so quickly. After this, they have a match that's kind of all over the place, which is the intention, because it's a Falls Count Anywhere match between Joey Janela and Kip Sabian. Now, this is kind of this part didn't kind of work for me, at least in the beginning, because they didn't tell us that it's a Falls Count Anywhere match when the match started. I don't think they announced that even when they were doing the rundown, even when Tony Schiavone was doing the rundown of what the matches would be for the episode. I don't think he said that it would be a Falls Count Anywhere match. So out of the blue, Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford come out, and while they're doing their entrance, the super bad entrance and all that kind of stuff, Janela comes out and low blows Kip Sabian. And then the bell rings, and he tries to roll him up right there on the stage for a quick pin victory. Doesn't work, but we're kind of left a little confused of what's going on. So hopefully they announce to the crowd that this is going to be a Falls Count Anywhere match, because otherwise I'm not sure how the crowd knew. But as matches go, it was good-ish until the end. Falls Count Anywhere matches can be tricky because you naturally want to fight throughout the crowd. However, if you're not properly set up screen-wise, there's naturally parts of the audience that can't see it. We can see it at home because there's a camera following them, but if that camera isn't necessarily hooked up to the Titantron big screen or anything like that, we don't always know if you're in the audience what's happening. I've had that happen in WWE shows where we've had fighting go into the crowds that I've been to personally, and the cameras weren't for whatever reason showing it that well up on the screens, or because of where you were sitting, you didn't necessarily have a good shot of the screen. So it can be a little tricky, and because of that, your audience participation can suffer. And when your audience participation suffers, then it affects the person viewing at home, right? Because now they're basing what they think of the match partially off of crowd pops, crowd reactions, and the like. So this match didn't suffer from too much of that. Mainly the drawback of this match was the finish. So the finish here involved two tables that Penelope had to keep moving around, and Sabian's on the rope or on the apron facing so his back is towards the stage, and they're in that area right in front of the ring, and so he's looking at the bulk of the arena hanging onto the ropes. Janela keeps trying to put him through the table. Penelope's randomly kind of moving the table because I think she was originally Sabian was trying to get Sabian was trying to get Joey through a suplex, back suplex through the tables. So she's trying to move them. Then she decides to be cute, and because she's been interfering throughout this match, because a Falls Count Anywhere match is also a no DQ match, she gets up on the top rope, jumps onto Janela. They're in the ring mixing it up. Sabian's still standing there recovering, and she tries a crossbody from the other corner post. Janela catches, rolls through, does the John Cena kind of stand up and carry her thing, turns around, and basically runs and throws her into Sabian, who has to catch her, and the momentum's carrying them backwards through the tables. So now this would have been fine if the tables had broken. This is now, I think, the third time I've seen a Joey Janela match, either on TV or in person, aka the only ways you can see a Janela match, not sure why I said that, but where he failed to break tables somehow, some way through the match. The first time I saw it was at All In, when he was facing Hangman Page, and Penelope Ford was on his side because they were still dating back then. But long story short, the tables don't break. So that, which was the intended, I think, finish of the match, they kind of botched it, because now the move is complete in the sense that Kip Sabian probably took a real hit because of one table not breaking and them not going through it properly, and then their feet kind of kicking the other table into them. I think the edge of the table kind of hit him in an awkward place, so he's definitely hurt. However, for what the eye test of damage, all you see is, he bounced off the table, or he and Penelope bounced because he's holding her. he's cradling her to protect her. Smart move. That's what you need to do. Always make sure that you're, like people, when you take moves, oftentimes the person hitting the move is taking the worst brunt of the move to protect the other person. For example, a DDT. If you think about it, that person is cradled. The person getting DDT'd, their head is actually cradled perfectly. Most of the damage that's going to be happening to them is in the neck. So you cradle the head and the neck area to try to make sure that when you drop backwards, you're not actually hurting them. But what does that mean? That means that the person dropping back is taking the full force on their back, upper neck area, upper back of the neck area, and the back of the arm. So in this situation, what he's doing is he's cradling her to make sure nothing happens to her, which is a smart move. But because of that, he takes a hit, but because the tables don't break, it doesn't look as though he took as bad of a hit as he did. So it would have been weird if Janela just randomly pins him. So Janela goes under the ring, grabs a kendo stick, hits him one time with the kendo stick, pins him 1, 2, 3. And so I kind of felt like that probably was not the finish when you just tried to break 2 tables. So there was some kind of botch or something like that going on there. Finally, our main event was Dustin Rhodes and teaming up with QT Marshall with Brandy Rhodes versus Peter Avalon, Leva Bates, and Shawn Spears. It is a regular tag match that is it's good. For what they wanted out of it, I think it was good. I'm not usually viewing a match with QT Marshall in it as a serious match, in the sense of this is pushing along some crazy storyline. There's supposed to be some kind of story development or something like that. I'm thinking this is just a match for people to watch. That's kind of what QT Marshall and Peter Avalon are there for. They knew what they were getting themselves involved in. I guess there is a storyline on Dark of Shawn Spears still looking for a tag team partner, and that's what Tully Blanchard is, auditioning people, and this is, I guess, a second chance for Peter Avalon. It doesn't go that well because Avalon and Shawn Spears do not pick up the win. There is a moment where Leva Bates tries to stop Dustin from attacking Avalon while he's in the corner. She gets in the ring, grabs his leg, tries to hold him. Brandy gets the ring, takes off the earrings, hits a bionic spear, and the match continues onwards, which was kind of like, there was more, not comedy, but more lightheartedness, we'll say, than serious Pac versus Omega Iron Man match kind of material going on here. But for a main event that, most likely, I think the last match of Dark is the last match of the night for a Wednesday, when they run through the beginning matches of Dark, Dynamite itself, and then one final match that is the main event of Dark. So that's kind of just, let the crowd go home happy. Let's make sure there aren't any crazy injuries. Let's just bring everybody down from everything they've seen. So for what it's worth, or what it's intended to be, it works out very well. All right, so let's move onwards to NWA Powerrr. All right, now this week's episode of Powerrr, it's light on the matches, heavier on the promos. Nothing wrong with that. We're building towards the Crockett Cup, and sometimes you gotta have people talking. You can't just have action. So for this, we start off with Tim Storm promo. First, Tom Latimer comes out, and he's kind of talking about the loss that he took, but he says that he's fine with it, like in the sense that Tim Storm they're trying to get into Latimer's head, talking about what would happen if Latimer ever faced Nick Aldis, and Tim Storm that's kind of, it wasn't really a factor necessarily in the loss, but I can see how it's generally a factor for Tom Latimer. So Latimer leaves. Tim Storm, who's been cutting this promo, it's kind of your standard Tim Storm, I believe my mom believes in me, I'm not ready to give up yet. he has Danny Deals comes out. Danny Deals is somebody who's been doing the commercials for High Spots, and the funny commercials that NWA Powerrr runs, he's been doing those for High Spots, and we find out that he has been the person dressing up as Mama Storm. He gives Tim options. He's saying you can, team up with. Basically, he's saying that he didn't intend to say anything bad about Tim Storm, but Tim is kind of in a rut, and he can help with that. He can help by having Tim tag with somebody. And Tim says, I really don't care. I just want to face you because I want to get my hands on you because you're the one who was parodying or spoofing or being facetious about my mother. And I don't appreciate that. So Danny Deal says, you know what? If you don't want to team with my guy, you have to fight my guy. You know who I'm talking about. Somebody that you may or may not have mistreated in the past. And we find out that it's former NWA World Heavyweight Champion and former NWA Tag Team Champion with Crimson, actually, Jax Dane of the War Kings, the team with Crimson. The two have a face-off. And it's pretty physical. They're just eyeball to eyeball, nose to nose, forehead to forehead, cheek to cheek, chin to chin, hairline to hairline. They're just ready. And so I think we're going to be getting that match probably sometime next week, if I had to guess. NWA usually does a good job about teasing a match 1 week, giving it to you the next week. So after this, we have a Matt Cross promo talking about how he is a wrestler. Wrestlers are forever, and so because he has the ability to be forever by being remembered in that ring, and that's what he wants. That's what he's going to do. Strong promo, actually. Short, sweet, but it gets the intent over, and you start to want to root for him in a match, which is a triple threat match between him, Ricky Starks, and Ziggy Dice. Now, remember, the week prior, Matt Cross and Ricky Starks went to a time limit draw. So we're kind of pulling for him to get a win here because maybe he'll get another TV title shot. And if you are rooting for Matt Cross, I'm afraid I have some bad news. Like Stu Bennett, his old persona, would say. Matt Cross does not pick up the win here. Ziggy Dice picks up the win. It's a short match, but what they do here is they have Ziggy Dice take advantage of it being a triple threat, and somebody else does the work, but the heel cashes in, and Ziggy Dice pins and wins, and it looks as though he's going to be potentially facing Ricky Starks down the line for a TV title match. Would not be surprised if that is also next week. After this, there is an episode of May Valentine's Diary, kind of a continuation of the last time. It's a tongue-in-cheek spoof of just May's weird outlook on what is going on a week-to-week basis in the backstage of NWA Powerrr. It gets the job done. It's not as funny as some of the karate promos, but I gotta give it up to them. They are trying. They are trying to find different ways. May Valentine's somebody who we didn't really know much about a few weeks ago. Now we know more about her. We know more about the character. They've done character development. Character development is vital in professional wrestling. It is needed. You have to have somebody who the crowd identifies with and something, what they identify about that person, what they agree with, what they disagree with, what they like, what they don't like. They need to know something about that person. And they're doing that with May Valentine. Now, her character is that she's an idiot. But they're doing a good job of conveying that she's an idiot. So, you gotta appreciate that. After this, there's an Aaron Stevens promo. He is talking up the fact that he claims he is not a coward, but that he is a true fighter, despite the fact that there's evidence that he is actually a coward. And they say that he says that Question Mark is going to be having a match. Question Mark comes out. They do the karate shtick, and it's Trevor Murdoch. So this is a nice, fun match. This was a opening match in the TV title tournament, if I remember correctly, and Trevor Murdoch advanced. Then Trevor Murdoch advances this time around. And if remember how I said in the beginning of NWA our Power section that this episode was light on wrestling, well, there's a reason why. This match is only 35 seconds long. It's very quick, very quick. Basically, Trevor Murdoch comes out with the power game, word to the injured and suspended Samoa Joe, and he just knocks Question Mark around the ring, gets a quick pin. Not much to write home about. I think I've talked about this match more than the match actually went. So let's move on to an Nick Aldis promo. Aldis cuts a promo about how he is the man who makes the NWA move, and he says it's not trickle-down economics, it's nickel-down economics, which I thought was kind of a funny little tidbit. It's a funny little twist on the words, play on the words. It's those little things that add to promos, right? Like, I don't remember everything he said, but I remember trickle down, nickel down, right? And those are the things that convey Nick Aldis in a second. We know what kind of person Nick Aldis is, that he's arrogant enough to think that he's the cause of the NWA success, which, I mean, to be fair, kayfabe or not, he is. But the character is arrogant enough to believe that, and the character is also arrogant enough to think that he can make a play off of words that's bad and make it good. But he says, let's have Marty Scurll come out. Marty, this is your chance to back down. Marty comes out and says that let's do this right now. And he gets into the ring, and so there's a good moment. I like how they played it. Nick Aldis is standing there, and he's looking in the ring and says, "You sure you want to do this?" That was a horrible version of Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis has more, I don't know the names of the dialects of, not dialects, but the names of the accents for the British accent. There's different accents. I mean, if you listen to Michael Caine as opposed to the Beatles, there's in interviews John Lennon or Paul McCartney, very variety in accents. So where was I? Right. Nick Aldis is saying, "You sure you want to do this?" And Marty's like, "Yeah." And Royce Isaacs comes in. And Aldis says, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And Marty's like, "Well, I got my umbrella with me in this ring. I think we got a shot here." And then Tom Latimer comes out. And Aldis is like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And Marty's starting to get a little worried, but then out of nowhere from the crowd, Brody King of Villain Enterprises. He's got some backup. No CEO should ever go anywhere without his bodyguard, his employees, his CFO, his CIO, all the C-suite executives. You got to have all of them with you, right? So he's got Brody King with him. They have a brawl at ringside, and they need help separating everybody up from this brawl. So after this, there's an Eddie Kingston promo. Strong promo as usual. Eddie Kingston, he's calling out Pope. Pope comes out. They are going back and forth, and it seems as though there may be a scrap. But Pope keeps begging off and saying, he does what he wants. So then Kingston has the bouncers come out again, and it looks as though Pope has some things to worry about, because bouncers are big guys, and it doesn't look as though he has the Dawsons with him. And to Kingston's point, you had the Dawsons. I made the Dawsons disappear because I brought the bouncers, so now it's time to pay the piper. Pope references again how Pope does what he wants, and he can get what he wants And he says he doesn't drink beer the way Kingston does, but if he wanted to, he could get his hands on some. And the bouncers, who are famous for drinking beer, turn on Eddie Kingston, insinuating that Pope has bought them off. And they attack Eddie Kingston, drag him into the ring, beat him up. Oh, this is just getting worse and worse for poor old Eddie. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how he's going to get his revenge on Pope. First he had to find a way around the Dawsons. Now he's got to find a way around the people who beat the Dawsons up for him. This is just all over the place. So I'm hoping that maybe Homicide is coming back. Maybe that's where they're going with this. Not sure, but it's one of the stronger storylines, which is saying something considering almost every storyline on NWA Powerrr is very strong. All right, after this, it's main event time. Last week they teased it. Melina was saying there's going to be a reckoning because I want my title match against Thunder Rosa. And so now we're going to have that match. And we're coming out for the main event, and it's Melina versus Thunder Rosa. And Melina seems to want some kind of, she wants her to lay down for her. She wants Thunder Rosa, who went through all this trouble just to get the title away from Allison Kay. She wants her to just lay down in some version of a finger poke of doom, and let herself be pinned. But ladies and gentlemen, this is professional wrestling, and in professional wrestling, there are always things called face turns. You could be a heel, but you can always come back home. And that's basically what is happening tonight. Melina cements the face turn by telling, Thunder Rosa cements the face turn by telling Melina, if you want this title, you're going to have to actually take it. And so Melina gets a little upset about that, and she rolls out of the ring and lets herself be counted out. She's climbing up the stairs of the bleachers when Allison Kay comes out and forces her back down the stairs of the bleachers into the ring. Allison Kay gets into the ring, and you think, oh, now Allison Kay is going to get her revenge. Because remember, all of this problem originally started when Melina influenced Thunder Rosa and Marty Bell to turn on Allison Kay. Thunder Rosa got Marty Bell to turn on Allison Kay, but Thunder Rosa was working for Melina, and Melina was putting these nonsense into Marty Bell's ears. So really, it's Melina's fault. So now it's time for Allison Kay to finally get that revenge. But out of nowhere, Camille shows up and hits Allison Kay with a wicked spear. And I don't know if it was. Yeah, no, it was. Ashley Vox was there. Ashley Vox and Tasha Steelz. For a second, when I first saw it, I thought it was Marty Bell. But no. Ashley Vox and Tasha Steelz are there to help Allison Kay out of the ring. Melina rolls out of the ring. And all we're left with is Thunder Rosa having a stare down with Camille. And NWA Powerrr goes off the air with this tease of what can happen down the road between Camille and Thunder Rosa. We may have Thunder Rosa's next real challenger once she gets past Melina. I'm not sure if they're going to continue that storyline, what exactly is going to be happening there, but as an overall recap, I'd like to say that I found both episodes of AEW Dark and NWA Powerrr to be rather strong this week. And one of the reasons why is because we were getting payoffs. So for some time, I've said that AEW Dark needs to have actual storylines and actual things that are happening on the show that are make people tune in. Oftentimes, what the show is just a setup for the very next episode of Dynamite. So like for last week, Statlander and Swole won matches, and then the next day, Statlander and Swole were the two who confronted Nyla Rose. This time around, we're actually seeing storylines starting to develop on Dark itself. Everything that's happened with Jimmy Havoc has pretty much happened on Dark. Everything that's been going on with Shawn Spears trying to find a tag team partner has pretty much been going on Dark. But what's kind of cool is that the storyline between Janela and Kip Sabian has been on Dark and on Dynamite, but these two are having a Falls Count Anywhere match that's furthering the storyline and furthering it heavily on Dark. And that's something that's really cool. It's good to see them starting to really build Dark out and see what can be done on Dark that's not just enhancing the next episode of Dynamite, but enhancing the next episode of Dynamite, Dark for next week, Dynamite for next week, and episodes down the line. Especially when we know that TNT is going to be having them expand the repertoire of AEW weekly shows to 2. They want Dark to become an actual show. So we'll see how this works out in the future. But I do like that they are doing more and more on Dark. NWA Powerrr, as usual, knocking it out of the park. One of the best hours of television that you have. So until next time, guys, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the other side as we review next week's episode of Dark Powerrr.